Oh my goodness, I never thought a little pocket could be such a pain in the butt. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the welt pocket. So we decided that we were going to try to make your life easier. This is how you do a welt pocket.
Alright, so how are we going to do this, babe?
Alright, so these are your 3 pieces for the welt pocket. We do it in 3 different pieces for the technique we use, so that you can have matching fabric for your sweater if you want. You can always do an accent, but then a separate inner piece, so you don't have a bulky lining to your pocket. You can use something nice and thin. You have 3 pocket pieces here. So we have our welt pocket piece. You don't have to cut this part out. This is just for marking. So I cut it out so that I could easily just trace with my fabric pen in there.
Good idea.
You have the lining fabric, or the lining piece for the bottom of the pocket bag, and then you have the pocket bag lining that's going to go over the rest of it. So this you will need to cut 2 of the main fabric, 2 of interfacing. This one you just need 2 lining fabric, and this one you need 2 of the lining fabric as well. So you have 2 of everything for your 2 pockets.
And I'll just add, we do try to do teen size as well, so you can see that this inner set line here, we actually have them labeled for the different sizes, so that way you know which size you want it.
Yep, Josiah wears a size 44, and so that's why I'm doing this larger one for him. So these are the pieces that I've cut out from these pattern pieces. This is the pocket bag cut out of the lining fabric. This is just a cotton lycra that I'm using. You can use anything that's relatively lightweight, so it's not bulky. You can even use a woven fabric for this. It does not need to stretch. And this is the main fabric that I'm using so that the pocket opening will match the rest of the fabric. I didn't want a contrasting accent for this. So here I've also traced this rectangle. Like I said, you don't need to cut this out. I just find it easier for tracing. You do not cut that out of the fabric. It's just for marking your welt rectangle. And then you're just going to, this is the right side, and this is the right side, so we're going to put those together like that and stitch along here to connect them so that they're one piece.
Okay.
And then we will open them like that. Now I took my welt piece. As you can see, here's the right side. Here's the right side of the bag lining, and I've attached the interfacing to the wrong side of the welt piece, and then I sewed it to the lining and press that seam open. The next step, I put this back on top of there. Like I said, I cut this out for easy marking, and I just drew that rectangle in there. There's also a mark on your bodice pieces where your pocket goes. So I've also traced that rectangle on the right side of bodice A here for the Kodiak sweater. And then I want to line up this rectangle with this one. So again, we've got these 2 pieces attached already. So we just put that over there, line it up, and quickly just pin that together around the outside of that rectangle. The next step we need to do, now that we have it pinned securely so it won't move around, is just stitch along this mark, this rectangle that you drew. We're going to use a shorter stitch so you can stitch exactly to the corner, put your needle down and pivot, and then go along here. You want really nice sharp corners for this. So keep your needle down, lift the foot, pivot, and stitch right on that line. Now that you have your rectangle sewn on here, you're going to cut down the middle, leaving about 1/2 inch, and then diagonally out to each corner. You don't have to draw this on, but I like to have kind of a line to cut along. And you're going to cut this open. You'll see these markings in the illustrations on the tutorial. It's just kind of a guideline for where you're going to cut. You're going to want all 4 of those flaps. So we'll go ahead and cut through all the layers in the middle there. making sure that you get the front layer as well. So you go all the way through, and then I'm going to cut out to here. Cut right to the corner. You want to get really close to the corner because it's going to give you a nice clean finish, but you do not want to cut those stitches that you just made.
And we repeat, don't cut the stitches. That seemed important.
And then over on the other side, the same thing. Cut right down and out to the corners. And there we go. Next we're going to take it over to the ironing board. Alright, now you're going to push the pocket all the way through the hole to the wrong side of the fabric. Flip it over, and then it's just a lot of...
This is the wrong side of the fabric.
Yep. A lot of finagling here to get everything lined up.
Now, is it important to have those flaps in the middle here laying flat?
Yep, you want to make sure that you're right up against the seam there. It's a nice, straight, tight rectangle, just like you cut it out. And then we're going to iron those corners down all the way around the edge. When you're working with knits, especially sweater knits, a lot of them are poly based and don't iron very well. Your interfacing helps with that, to help kind of give it a good crease, and you can always use pins to help keep everything in place right here while you're waiting to sew it as well. Get that nice and crisp. You can flip it over to the other side to see how it looks. It's looking good. We've got some nice sharp corners there. If you're getting any wrinkles in the corners, sometimes it bunches up. You can see it a little bit here on this corner. That usually means you didn't snip it quite close enough to your thread there, or maybe didn't do a super sharp corner. A little bit of that can just be pressed out. You can also go back and trim it a little more if you want to. But I think that looks pretty good. The last thing you need to do before stitching it up is to flip it over and then pinch your welt piece here and bring it up to the top of the pocket. You want to be right up against the top there, the top of that hole. No gaping and no overlapping. That's going to be the opening of your pocket. So once that's lined up really well, we'll press it. Give it a nice crisp edge. You can see from this side, you have your welt piece folded up without any gaping or overlapping right there. Now we're ready to go pin it and sew it secure. Going to pin it in place now. So I'm pinning this fold to itself, to the welt pocket piece here, right here, to keep it all in place, and that little triangle. I'm not pinning through the bodice at all, just the pocket piece here. And then again on the other side. Pinning that fold in place, and if we turn it over, you can see that now we have a nice pocket there with an opening at the top. Now we just have to sew it all in place. The way that we do it in the tutorial is a little bit more nitpicky, but it results in no stitching showing on the front of the bodice. If you want, you can certainly do a shortcut, or even if you want the accent stitching to show, you can just top stitch this right around the rectangle, so that you secure everything in place right along the edge there. I'm going to show you how to do it so that there is no stitching showing on the front. So go to our sewing machine here, and I'm going to do it right side up here and fold the bodice out of the way. So this is the front of the shirt. We're folding that piece out of the way. I'm going to sew along the top of the pocket here, just to the right of these stitches that you made before for sewing the rectangle, and through the welt piece, but not on the bodice and not into that hole there. Alright, I've secured those stitches. And then I'm going to move on to the bottom and sides. This is where we have it pinned in place. You fold. And moving the bodice piece out of the way again. I'm going to move my pin over so I don't sew on it. And sew through these little triangles, the folded welt piece, so it's pinched up like that. Right along those stitches again. And that's securing the welt fold in place. That's the piece that you'll see outside of the pocket. You're not going to see those stitches. Here I'm just going to lift and pivot and do the same thing. Make sure that my fold is still nice and secure. And now I'm going to sew this flap onto my pocket. Again, I have the pin here holding everything in place, so I'm going to move that out of my way. Stitch a little further, and I'm just going to pivot and stitch this last side of the pocket into place. And we're back to the top. Secure my stitches. And that part is done. Here we are, having secured our welt. This piece is folded up to meet the top of the hole, and we stitched through here, down here, and up this side to hold that fold nice and secure. Now if we fold it over, you can see we've got the nice outside of a welt pocket. We'll do a nice press one more time to make everything good and crisp, but as you can see, there's stitching here, but there's no stitching showing on the outside of the bodice piece. It's completely hidden stitches. The last step, the only thing left to do to finish up this pocket, is to sew the lining of the bag on it. So that's our last pocket pattern piece that we used. Here's that piece. We're going to just lay it on top of here, line it up with the rest of the pocket that's sewn onto the bodice, and we're just going to stitch all the way around. You can serge it if you want. Just stitch that bag onto the rest of the pocket, and you have a fully secure pocket. One thing to double check, if you have any sagging, if you're using a lighter weight fabric, more like the Hachi, there's plenty of room here to make sure you can sew on your bag, but to double secure it, you may want to stitch right in the same stitch line again, to keep anything from sagging. If the pocket's a little bit saggy, that'll take care of that.
Woohoo! Yeah!
And that is sewing welt pockets.
Yay!
This is the method that we use on both the Charleston vest and the Kodiak sweater. So. Okay, I'm done on camera.